Hey folks, welcome. This is the kickoff to the start of a 5-part series on annuities, taking a deeper dive off of the longer form YouTube video that we've got posted, understanding annuities, how they work, and their role in retirement. That one's posted on there. If you haven't watched that, highly recommend that you go check that out. What we're going to do in these 5-part videos is dig a little bit deeper into some of the topics. So if you want a little bit more detail, this is where you're going to find it. So this first one, we're going to kick off with how to choose the right annuity, 5 factors that lead to that. Second one is going to be common mistakes that people make when choosing annuities. Then we're going to get into annuities versus other retirement income strategies. We'll talk about real life scenarios in another video. So we've got a lot to offer over the next couple of weeks, posting these up for you. So we hope you'll watch them. You can watch them in any order, but they're designed to really build on each other. So you start with this one, lead to the second, third, fourth, and fifth, so on. So you get a real good grip and an understanding of exactly what you should be aware of when buying an annuity. And that's our goal, is to make sure that you make the most informed decision when it comes to purchasing an annuity, whether that's with us or with somebody else. So appreciate you being here. Let's get started. How to choose the right type of annuity for your retirement goals. So we're going to look at 5 different factors, starting off with risk tolerance. Then we're going to move into inflation protection. Are you looking for growth? Are you looking for income? And of course, tax implications. These are 5 of the big areas that you want to really pay attention to, because it makes a difference in what type of annuity you may purchase for a given situation or a given strategy or a goal. So number 1, start with your retirement goals. Ask yourself these questions. Do I need guaranteed income soon, or can it wait? That can help determine whether you need an immediate annuity, something that you get income right away, or that you can defer that annuity. 2 different types of annuities, 2 different types of costs. Do you want growth, or do you want protection from risk? Same kind of question, because it will lead you to one type of annuity versus another. And if you just want growth with the option, the flexibility of taking money out down the road, that gives you one type of annuity. If you're looking for protection from risk and you're not looking so much for growth, that leads to another type of annuity. All have different costs, all have different benefits, so you just need to be aware. Is this annuity going to supplement your guaranteed income sources? And those income sources are typically Social Security, possibly pensions. I know we don't have as many of those nowadays, but some people still do have pensions. So the formula is you take the amount of guaranteed income that you've got, Social Security, husband, wife, pensions, husband, wife, add that together, and then subtract that from your total expenses per month. So, for example, if you've got total expenses of $4,000 a month and you've got guaranteed income sources of $2,500 a month, you've got a $1,500 gap. That's where annuities come in. That's where you can look at it and say, okay, if I take a chunk of my money, something from one of my buckets of money, and how much is it going to take for me to buy an annuity and pay myself $1,500 a month to cover that gap? And again, do you need it now or do you need it down the road? All going to depend on all the other sources of money that you have, which is what we get into whenever we talk with clients. So it's a pretty thorough process. So just keep all of these in mind as we go and explore everything that we can about choosing the right annuity. Understand your risk tolerance. So you've probably done this with securities, even looking at your own 401ks as you were in that accumulation stage or possibly are still in that accumulation stage. What risk level are you? Are you low risk when it comes to annuities? That's going to lead you more towards a fixed side, something with a steady interest rate, something with guaranteed principal. If you're a medium risk, low to medium risk, then you might look into more of a fixed index type, because that's going to give you downside protection where they have those 0% floors, if you recall from the long form video that we did. And also it's going to give you some upside. So you can use that for income, say 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years. You can buy an annuity like that and then never annuitize it. You don't have to pull that trigger. So that's one thing you should keep in mind. When you sign up for one of these, you need to make the decisions what you think you're going to need for long term, and we walk through those also. If you're high risk, if your tolerance is still very high, then there's variable annuities. Those are directly tied to the stock market. So you'll participate in the upside of the market. You'll also participate in the downside. So there is no downside protection. That's the risk in those, and they're higher costs. These are great for younger folks, probably in your, I would say, 30s, 40s, possibly 50s, depending on how long you're willing to put that money aside. Variable annuities can work very well, but you have to manage those. So you have to be willing to say, do you want to manage those? Because that's really on you when it comes to that kind of risk. Income needs and timeline. So kind of gets back to number one that we talked about. So when do you need income to begin? Even if at all. Because again, you can buy an annuity with the intent of having income, but you don't necessarily have to trigger it. But in this scenario, what we're trying to say is that if you need the money immediately, then you're going to be looking at immediate annuities, because those are going to pay out starting 30 days from now. And typically you buy those annuities and they pay out for anywhere from 5 to 30 years. People at retirement are typically going to go that full 30 years because they retire at 65, 67 nowadays, and they want to give themselves that long horizon. So that's one option. Deferred annuities are the other option, where you don't know exactly when or even if you need to pull the trigger on the income. So you might put money into a fixed indexed annuity and say, you know what, I'm going to trigger income 7 years from now, or right at when my RMDs are coming due at age 72, 73. But you get to that point and you find out, you know what, things are going good. I don't need to trigger it. Fine. You can just continue to let that thing grow. You'll be past the surrender charge period and in pretty good shape. So just think about that income gap that we talked about on the other slide, because that's important when you're talking about income needs and timeline. Now, inflation protection. We all know about inflation. We hear about it in the news all the time. Inflation was virtually non-existent for a long time, over a decade, and then it really jumped up in the last 3 or 4 years, leveled off to come back down now. But inflation is always a component of the equation because it affects the purchasing power of your dollars. So there are a lot of products out there right now that have inflation protection. They're going to give you some stable income in the fixed annuity side, but the purchasing power could erode because a fixed annuity is not giving you any type of growth. It's just giving you guaranteed principal, probably some income right out of the gate. Indexed annuities, those are the ones that do have some linked benefits, adjustments for inflation. The thing that you want to keep in mind there is there are costs to that. So is the value that you're getting from that inflation rider, whatever cost that might be, 0.5% to 1% annually on your contract, is that value worth that rider? And I'm not saying it won't be, because it very well could be, but you've got options. You just need to be aware of all of those, and we walk you through that. And then variable annuities, they obviously offer more growth potential, like we talked about, because they can keep pace with rising costs. So it really can be built-in inflation. You don't even have to buy a rider. Frankly, in a lot of variable annuities, they just have more risk, like we said. So you've got different options if you actually want inflation protection. You just have to weigh the benefits versus the costs. Down there at the bottom, if you're retiring early or expecting a long retirement, you might want to consider an option that includes inflation protection because you've got this long runway. But again, that's something that we talk about. Risk tolerance, kind of combine everything all together. Tax implications, the thing that we hate the most, right? Annuities do have unique tax treatment. I am not a tax advisor, so I always do recommend that if you need specific numbers, we can walk through illustrations and designs and say this is what you can expect. And if you want a little bit more detail or a little bit more solid advice from a tax advisor to say this is exactly what you'll pay, then I highly recommend talking to a tax advisor. But I'm in a position where I can give you pretty good information. I can tell you exactly how they're taxed, what it would look like based on the illustration that we put together. But things change down the road, so you just need to be aware of that. Tax rates change and so forth. Earnings inside of an annuity do grow tax deferred, but when you take the income out, the earnings portion is taxed as ordinary income. A lot of people think it's taxed as capital gains, and that's not true. It is taxed as ordinary income. Not necessarily a downside, just something you need to be aware of. Money in, money out. So it's taxed what they call FIFO, first in, first out. And then, of course, if you withdraw before age 59 and a half, just like in the 401k world, the qualified plans that we're all familiar with as we are in that accumulation stage, if you pull your money out before age 59 and a half out of an annuity, you could face a 10% IRS penalty. So again, just need to be aware of those tax implications. inside of annuities because they can work a little bit different. A lot of people say, don't put an annuity because it's a tax-deferred vehicle. Don't put it inside of a qualified plan. I used to agree with that maybe 20 or 30 years ago, but then just realized it's really, missing the point. The whole idea behind the annuity is probably to let that thing grow and then work on getting some sort of annuitization or withdrawal down on the back end. So just because it's tax deferred inside a tax deferred vehicle already, you're not getting a negative on that. It sounds like it's a negative, but it's just kind of an is what it is scenario. So don't be fooled that that's not a good idea or not a plan that you can effectively put in place. A lot of times we have more dollars available inside our qualified plans. So why not go ahead and get an annuity inside that plan? Because that also, by the way, can help offset any of the RMDs that are ultimately going to be up against, that we're all going to be up against when we hit age 72. So not a deal killer in my opinion. So in summary, you just want to match goals to the annuity type. So for example, scenario number one, if you're retiring right now and you need guaranteed income, then you're going to look at an immediate fixed annuity. If you're in a scenario where you want to grow your money safely, you want to delay that income for 5 or 10 years because you feel pretty comfortable, then you want to consider a fixed indexed deferred annuity with a future income rider. So again, just be aware of the rider costs and weigh out those benefits versus that income. Third one, if you want to invest for growth and you're comfortable with risk, then you can consider a variable annuity. A variable annuity, again, like we said before, higher risk, potentially higher rate of return, participate in the upside, also participate in the downside, and you've got to manage the risk. They are the highest cost variable annuities, so I personally tend to shy away from those when it comes to guaranteed income riders, because guaranteed income riders already have a cost to it. Add that on top of the internal cost of a variable annuity, and I just don't think it's the best place for it. Good place for growth, not the best place for income, in my opinion. Scenario number 4, you have enough income. You're in a situation where, I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm retired, or I'm almost retired, but you want to lock in some income starting down the road, age 75 or later, let's say. And that's just an example. It can be any age. Then you also would want to look at a deferred income annuity, a fixed indexed annuity, something with a guaranteed lifetime income rider. So those are some simple scenarios. When we get into the 4th and 5th videos here, you're going to see a lot more specific strategies. In fact, we'll put some spreadsheets up on the screen that will show you exactly how these things work. Money coming out of bucket 1, that one empties out, goes into bucket 2, and so on. It's something that we're pretty good at. So final tips, before purchasing an annuity, just compare all the fees, the surrender charges, the rider costs. We do all that. We walk you through all that just so you understand. I'm not going to kid you and say that there aren't fees involved. There's always fees involved in any investment product that we buy, no matter if it's stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, so forth. There's always fees. Just need to be aware of what they are and then weigh out those benefits versus the costs. Understand how your income will be calculated. We'll talk more about that, like I said, as we go into some of these other videos and get much more specific on how those things are calculated, because it's not as transparent, and maybe that's not the right word, but it's not as simple as you might think. There's a couple calculations that insurance companies use. Frankly, they're very effective and very positive, but you have to understand how they do it, so you see what your actual account value is versus what your income is going to be. And then just make sure it fits within your broader retirement plan. And obviously you wouldn't be here today, I don't think, if you didn't already consider that it might be a good idea as part of your retirement plan. And if that's the case, then we definitely urge you to contact us. We'll put our contact information up at the end of this presentation, but set a time with us. Set the 30-minute free, no obligation consultation. We can talk just exactly what your scenario is, what you're trying to accomplish, and see if it makes sense to fit an annuity into that situation. So again, an annuity is not a one-size-fits-all solution. We're not talking about taking the bulk of anyone's money and saying, let's go buy annuities. This is you want to have a good mix inside a retirement income planning strategy. And we talk about that in that first long-form video. And we will talk about it in a couple of videos from now when we get into retirement strategies versus annuities. So just keep those things in mind. Like I said, we're going to put a link in the description at the bottom of this video on YouTube, and that link you're just going to copy and paste, put it into a browser. That will take you to this calendar of mine, which I always put out 7 days in advance. So you can go forward 7 days and you can click on that, get a free no obligation consultation, 30-minute, talk about what your goals are, talk about what you're trying to accomplish, answer any questions you have up front about annuities before we even get into any kind of strategies. That's at least a 2 or 3 phone call conversation. So that will do that. This is my contact information, so I want you to feel free to even just call me with a question. If you don't want to set up the time, call me. If you miss me, I will guarantee I'll call you back within half a day. But that's my number on the screen, 407-592-6958. And that is my email, brad@optionsbyday.com. So appreciate you following along on this video. Look forward to seeing you on the next videos coming up shortly.